Okay, so basically what I'm going to be doing is just documenting my travels through Dark Souls the game, which is in modern times probably the most popular Japanese game which tries to represent medieval Europe. Has a lot of medieval women in it, and that's particularly what I'm going to be focusing on. But for the hell of a journey, I'm just going to look at other things alongside it. Now, famously, this game is incredibly hard, but it's not the only Japanese game which focuses on medieval Europe. You have lots of games, Final Fantasy, you've got Dragon's Quest, a lot of RPG games, but this is more of a hack and slash kind of Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. Um, very brutal as well, very dark toned. Hence the name Dark Souls. Now, I know this game quite a lot. I haven't played it in many years, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play as a very stereotypical kind of just a knight character. Okay. We'll just call him Knight Man. Knight Man, I think is good. Okay. Is that good enough? There you go. We're gonna be, so you can play as a female, obviously. One of the things I'll show you as that is if you go into physique, change that quite a lot. So you can change, different desired body scales. There is a way to go into customize. You can. They have different types of faces based on, I have no idea what, but the Japanese have their ideas of what things are. You can go even more, so you can really just change this character massively, which is kind of a joke because you don't see your character half the time. Most of the time your character will look like a zombie or most of the time your character will just look like a zombie, or they'll both just have a helmet on their face. What we're going to do now, we're going to change this back to male. Yeah, that's fine. And we're going to have average. We'll make him... Yeah, I think average is fine. We're going to make him a knight, which as you can see is a very stereotypical kind of... just like a normal European knight later periods. Although there is that sense of just kind of Japanese anime that just is very subtle, but you can kind of just feel it from the character. And the way it's got like a scarf on, and the way there's more leather than there is armor. My gift, now this is not really important, but you have a few things. You have the Old Witch's Ring, which is the one I'm going to be taking. Now this is important because this allows you to speak the witch's language. And the witches in particular tend to be represented only by females in this game. Although there is obviously sorcerers and wizards. You have the Master Key, which will be important, and a bunch of other stuff. One of my favourite things in this game, which is just a little kind of Easter egg. It doesn't actually do anything. Look at it. Trinket. No effect. Fond memories. Comfort travels. Now, this genuinely is useless. It does absolutely nothing in the game. People have spent days and weeks trying to figure out what this done. They've cracked into the code. It just does nothing. It's just there as kind of a joke, kind of gift to pick. The Old Witch's Ring will allow me to speak to the witches. And that's what I love about this game. If you don't pick that at the start of the game, you've lost massive amount of content. Like, there is a huge amount of content you can miss out on story-wise by not picking the Old Witch's Ring. Okay, I think that's fine for me. I'm happy with that. Now this introduction is going to be important.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arched trees, and everlasting dragon.
So dragons play a major part in this game. Basically what happened is before the universe, before light happened,
But then there was
before
fire.
fire happened, the entire world was just made
And
of
with
stone and ruled
fire
by dragons.
Came disparity.
Doesn't really make any sense, because that means, like, the idea is that time
and cold
and, like, everything didn't even exist.
and death.
Which doesn't make any sense, because how could it be ruled by
Of
dragons if
course.
time didn't exist?
Light and dark.
Which there's a lot of rumors that what we're being told
Then
here is just a
from the
legend.
dark,
It's not actually what
They
happened.
came
It's kind of like propaganda given
and found
by
the
the
souls
actual,
of
what's it
lords
say, the souls of
within the
lords.
flame.
So the ones who originally gained all the power, like, spread these rumors. So these are all the major lords. Nito, the first of
The
the dead.
first of the dead.
And that's when life and death is brought by this. Before that, there was nothing. There was no cycles. It was just infinite coldness.
Witch of Isolith
Here we have the Witch of Isolith.
and her daughters.
Now,
of
this is
chaos.
funny enough as well. She says she has daughters of chaos, but she does actually own. She actually has a son, which they don't talk about, that is in the game. And there's kind of a stereotypical Zeus kind of character. I know it's medieval, but he's got a very Zeus feel to him. And there's the pygmy, which is kind of, I think, supposed to represent man.
With the strength of lords, they challenge the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone skills. Witches weaved great firestorms.
And this is how it's seen in the game, how kind of the Age of Light, which you could kind of see as like a medieval renaissance. It just conquers the world. It destroys everything. It destroys the owners of the world and takes over.
Dragons
Here we have Sif the Scaleless. He betrayed his own kind. He's told the gods how to kill the dragons and the reward they gave the Duke. And there's some other stuff which I don't know if I'll go into because it gets a little bit weird.
began
But maybe later on in the game I'll talk about that.
fire.
So here's the Age of Fire. It's when all this marvelous technology happened. You kind of have this
But
gothic
soon
renaissance.
The flames will fade, and only dark will remain.
But what I like about the Dark Souls game is it's about it ending.
Even now, there are only embers.
The idea is that you are at the end of time,
Man
basically.
sees not light, but only endless lights. And amongst the
I always
living
like that, the
unseen,
idea of
carriers
that's the
of
Dark
accursed
Souls.
dark side.
Basically, the Dark Side and Dark Souls, in my opinion, is kind of the opposite to light. It basically comes about towards the end of time or when something bad's gonna happen, and it forces you to basically become immortal. You become the undead. You can't die, and I think it's kind of
Yes,
there so you
indeed.
can balance it out.
The dark sign brands the undead.
And this is the asylum. So basically,
And
what
in
happened
this
was
land,
these people just wouldn't die, and when you lose
the
motivation,
undead
when
are
you have
corralled and led to the north.
when you have a what would you call it? Yeah, when you have the dark side and you lose motivation, so you lose your will to
Where they
live,
are
you kind of just
locked
become like a
away.
zombie.
to await the
So it
end
kind of became a
the
bit of a
world.
problem because all these zombies were just about, they weren't really killing anyone, they weren't really doing anything major, so they just threw them all in a giant asylum and left them there waiting for the end of the world to happen.
This is your fate.
But you haven't lost your motivation yet. You'll see a dinner on the roof. And there you are. That's you. That's you without a soul, or you don't have your humanity actually. You've lost your humanity, so you've become a bit of a zombie. But yeah, what's happened is the world should have ended, basically. I'll spoil this story for you. The world should have ended, As you can see, this is us, zombie-faced Nightman in my cell, and there's so much detail here. You've got your chains, your little bugs crawling about, bucket, which I'm sure you'd guess what that would probably be used for. But yeah, the world should have ended basically, and what's happened is the Lord of Light. I forget his name now. We'll just call him the Lord of Light for now. He should have allowed the world to end, and he started to lose power. He started to become weaker as the light began to fade, because his power comes from the light. It's rumored from, just looking into it, that humanity should have taken over at that point, but he wouldn't allow this. So what he did is he went into the kiln, which is where the first flame came from, and he basically set himself on fire to create a second age of light. And now that second age of light is coming to an end again, and you are basically tasked of just trying to extend that a little bit more, getting to the bottom. But there are multiple endings to this game. However, the true ending, because there is a sequel, the true ending is that you extend the Age of Light, so you keep it going. But the real end, the ending that I prefer, is probably that you basically stop. You stop the Lord of Light, and you basically say, just let the natural course of history happen. The world is going to end. Just let it end. Which I kind of like. It's kind of an interesting idea that it's supposed to end, because even though they're extending it, they're just extending it even more. It will eventually happen. There is absolutely nothing they can do. They can keep expanding it as long as they want, but it will eventually happen. They'll run out of souls that are large enough to keep the fire going. These are just teaching you the controls. So here we have just a zombie. As you can see, it's just a hack and slash. I don't have my good weapons right now. There is the demon. He is the second demon, actually. There's two demons in this asylum. So he's down there guarding the asylum, making sure no undead can escape. And they all have souls, which I am taking, because souls is the currency in this game. The idea is that the souls all come from the original flame. Kind of like a big bang, in a sense. But the universe is ending, and we're going to allow it to end, I think. I think that's how I want to end this game. I want to end the world, in a sense. But the idea is that, perhaps this isn't the end. Perhaps there is something afterwards that we're not allowing, because is it Gwyn? I think Guinevere is the daughter, the son of the Lord of Light. And here we have the bonfire. Now basically, the bonfire is your spawn point. The idea is that you're immortal, you can't die. Every time you die, you get resurrected here. I think it's suggested that every time you die, you get sent to an alternative universe or something, and that there's parallel universes going on all the time. There's a little bit of complication behind that. We might discuss that theory as we go along. I have no notes, by the way. I'm just like not making stuff up, but just going from memory. I like this, the decay of everything. The fact that this asylum has been here for so long that it's just starting to slowly fall apart. That it could have been a battle up there at one point. These walls are falling down. It really makes you think, even if they did leave until the end of time, would this have even survived? Would this have eventually just collapsed on itself, and the undead would have just escaped anyway? We have some statues of what looks like dead dogs. But before we go in there, as you can hear, there's something interesting behind that. Before we go in there, yeah, a lot of the time I'm just gonna state things from memory. But the whole purpose of this game again is to either extend the Age of Light. As you can see the demon through that window. He's waiting for me. So either extend the Age of Light or allow the universe to end. It's this medieval ideology that the world is going to end. The world's always ending. You know, everything's coming to an end, because that's how that's how evidence from the Middle Ages is. They believed they were in the last age, that the world was going to end at any point, which was an interesting point of view, especially nowadays, 2,000 years later. But this is a view even we have nowadays. Many people believe the world was, you know, you had 2012 conspiracies, you had the asteroid conspiracies. Everyone's always believing the world is going to end. So not only is it something that incites a medievalist kind of approach of, you know, how the people in the Middle Ages, or how we think the people in the Middle Ages thought, but it also invokes a modern idea that we always think the world is going to end, and we're trying to extend our lives, trying to extend the life of the world instead of letting the natural course of the universe take its place. And I think that's everything really that we want to say here, isn't it? I mean, I don't think there's much else in this small little room that I've spent nearly 10 minutes now talking about. But yeah, I mean, you could spend a lot of time just in this room if you were really wanting to analyze a game. This is the perfect game to analyze, because there is real archaeology behind this. You can look at this, and a lot of the time you know that the designer's just doing it for, you know, aesthetic reasons. But you can analyze this, you can overanalyze it as much as you want, and that's the perfect thing about this game. Because the developer keeps things ambiguous on purpose, they do explain a little bit more in the later games. Don't really like that. I like the ambiguousness of it. I like the idea that the developer's making you think. They don't have an answer. They never had the answer. But they're making you think and make up your own story, which is from the evidence, which is very much, you know, what historians do now. We look at the evidence and we make our own stories up from it. Okay, I'm gonna go in. So basically, this is the demon. Now, the demons were actually created by the witches. The witches tried to recreate the first flame using magic, and they kind of succeeded. Oh, you can see he's still up there, I think. Or did he? Yeah, I think he's still up there. So they kind of succeeded in the fact that they did actually create life. They created demonic life, which doomed their entire underworld. However, obviously they didn't like that. They didn't like that they created demonic life. When really they did, you know, they did technically do the right thing by creating more life. It just wasn't the life the gods wanted. So the demons are hunted down. Ooh. This is the asylum. Oh crap! Forgot how to play. Oh, I don't have the agility I want. But basically, yeah, you don't fight this guy. You run away from him. I've got a really fat roll. You go in here, that shuts, and she's left to just roam outside. Don't worry, we'll come back to him later. But yeah, basically, what happened was the world was ending. The witches had the idea to create a second flame. They tried that. They ended up becoming demons themselves and creating the demons, which to some extent was a life force, was life they were creating. But the other gods, Lord of Light, didn't like that. So he was like, send in all my knights, we'll kill them, stop them from coming up to the upper world. So he did that. That was basically what they did. And then when he came up, he was like, okay, the age of gods is ending. I don't want these humans to take over, basically. I want to keep going on forever and ever and ever, which just can't happen. So he ends up setting himself on fire to extend the age of light to protect the other gods in a sense. So I like this here, which means we have to respawn here. We'll get some help. I haven't played this in a long time, so I'm probably going to be absolutely awful. Yeah, let's gonna try that. Is there a bit? I think feels like there's a little bit of delay on this. Might be because it's at 30 FPS and not 60. I probably should change that next time we play, but I don't want to mess around because I know this game can get pretty glitchy if it goes beyond 60 FPS. Alright, okay, he does so little damage. I don't think I actually picked up the sword, did I? Yeah, he wants me to pick up the sword. I did pick up the sword, didn't I? Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I did. Okay, so I get the broadsword, and I get the Tower Knight shield. Just stereotypical knight shield, made of metal, around the edges with a wooden center, and just a broadsword. Just kind of standard stuff you'd see in any medieval fantasy setting. So as you can see now, I have the shield protecting me. Stab, stab, dead. That's a fog gate. Now there probably is some kind of lore behind the fog gate. And you can see here's our little friend who gave us the key to get out earlier. But I can't remember any of the lore behind the fog gates. I think the fog is like, if I remember correctly, the fog is where we came from. It kind of represents the age before time. There was like a grey fog that covered the land. So that could represent, you know, the Dark Ages coming again. You know, the circle is happening, and this is a wall which we can't get through now, but there's a bit of a cheeky trick here. They're gonna kick that down, knocks the wall through. So these, you know, look, the place is just falling apart. I mean, I have no idea how that's been lit for this long. This game is full of traps and tricks. It's quite a difficult game. The undead are trying to kill each other because they've gone a little bit mad. They become very hungry for souls. Because the more souls you have, the more powerful you become. So basically, if you lose your humanity, you lose your will to live, you become really hungry for the souls of others. Here we have...
Oh, you. You're no Hollow.
No, I'm not
Thank
Hollow.
goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I were both undead. Hear me out, will you?
So I can just click no if I want, but I will hear him out.
Regrettably, I have failed in my mission. But perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family. Thou who art undead art chosen. And thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. Well, now you know. And I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask. An undead favorite.
Here is the Estus flask, which basically gives you life.
Oh, and this.
Gives you its key.
Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. And thank you.
So his quest was he was going to basically relight the fire. It's like a song, that. He was going to relight the fire to keep the Age of Light going, which is what's currently going on right now, the Age of Life. But he can't do it. He's tried over and over and over again. He just keeps dying. Every time he dies, he slowly loses a piece of humanity. So he's got to the point where he can barely contain himself. He's lost his motivation. He's about to become hollow. So he's giving you the quest, and I think it was part of his family's thing. Is like, whoever's undead has the opportunity. That's their quest. The whole purpose of the undead coming about is kind of the world reacting to a problem that's happening. So the world's reacting to a problem, and that problem is the world's going to end, and it's chosen lots of people to become undead in hopes that they can go forward and either stop. I think it's meant to be so it can extend the Age of Light, but I'm saying it's either way. Either way, it's basically there to stop the Age of Light in my feeling. The idea to let natural course happening, because it's never really stated. It is in the third game, but it's never really stated in this game that the world would entirely end if the Age of Light happened. I always got the opinion that see, there's another person. This is a cool thing. This game has a cool mechanic where if another person's playing, you can see them play, which is always really cool because people can join your games and fight alongside you or fight against you and stuff. But basically, I got distracted. I get distracted very easily. But I always see the idea is that these gods. I kind of see this as like the classical era. This is the idea that the classical era of these gods who live in the Olympus, basically. The classics, the Roman Empire is falling, and you, as the Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages, in a sense of the kind of the mythical idea of the Middle Ages, should be taking its place. But they're trying their best to stop that from happening. And in my opinion, I know the world does end in the later games, but in my opinion, in the first game, it was always meant to be that the world wouldn't end. That if you caused the Age of Light to end, that humanity would take over. The medieval ages, kind of a medieval view would take over. Because we see a lot of like demons and undead in the places we go, but we never go beyond the land of Lordran. In this game in particular, so we don't know if the rest of the world is like this. The rest of the world could be really normal for all we know.
Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after, and thank you.
So really, we can kill this guy. What I'll do here, and actually end his suffering. Kind of think I shouldn't have done that. I forget what happens now if you do that. There's a bunch of like hidden things if you do certain things, so I'm just gonna pretend that I am meant to do that. But you can come back and we can kill him and probably get his shield and stuff. But if we'd have left anyway, he'd have died. I'm very sword and board player. I don't really like the rolling, which happens in the later games. But there's so much that if you can just look at the walls and examine the detail that's been put into this world. I mean, it's just all of it's just falling apart. Over here, at one point, you know, even I feel the ground it's built on has worn away over the countless. You know, we don't know if we were in here for 100 years, if we were in here for 1,000 years. We don't know that, but from the looks of it, we've been in here for a long time, and whoever built this, it was just so long ago, and it's all just been worn away. Because no matter what you do, the world is your world in particular. It doesn't mean the whole world, the whole universe, but your world is going to end. And the idea is should we allow that or not? I forget how to parry in this one. There's a bunch of different mechanics and stuff which I can never remember what anyone does. So that's locked. I think we'll come back to open that. But as we play this game, you'll just see so much both classical and medieval. Yeah, I didn't know. Okay, I always forget to jump there. There's a little bit of delay, so I'm going to be a little bit bad. Take that just in case. Yeah, I'm just terrible. I forgot how to play this game for totally. Third one. One. She misses, so it doesn't go in for it again. One. Two. And then we can get from behind. The big, ugly, stereotypical kind of Japanese view of a demon. Now, we can go to that bonfire back there, but what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to open this here. Go out into this world. I have to be careful, because you can actually die here sometimes. Crow's nest there, that's used later in the game. Slide my heads out. So we have gravestones here, which is unusual because, you know, this is the undead. Why are there gravestones here? They can't die. So maybe these people used to work here. Maybe they were the people that built this place. Obviously you can't see the writing. But this game is so useful for so many different things. I'm going to particularly use it to view how medieval women can be represented in video games. But you know, along the way, I just want to show off. I don't know if I'll even show this to anyone, but just show off to myself to make me think about video games as a whole. Just, you know, what can they do? What can they be used for to the academic world? And in a sense, I really feel that they can be used for, you know, archaeological reasons, to examine made-up worlds, which I think are just as real as the world that we live in. You know, what was the reason for these gravestones? We don't know. We never will know. But there's lots of theories we can make from that. And that's the beauty of art, really. Your own interpretation. You come up here now and we get this cool scene. We've got this grey fog.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen.
Giant crow. Crows are just so gothic. They've just got that gothic feel to them. You got
undead asylum in pilgrimage
you got the Poe the poet.
To the land of the ancient lords.
Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, I think that's it. So it just gives. I know he was a later one. So he was Victorian. Later than that, maybe as well. But it's just that idea of. Just the idea of a gothic world. It's so depressing. It's a depressing view of the Middle Ages. There's no light here. Everything's dying, and really, this entire game is symbolized. Lordran, rest of the bonfires. You can actually level up there as well. But really, this whole idea of just a depressing Middle Ages is really represented in this guy here, who is the lost kind of undead.
You must be a new arrival. Let me guess. Fate of the undead, right? Well, you're not the first. But there's no salvation here. You'd have done better to rot in the undead asylum. But too late now. Well, since you're here, let me help you out. There are actually 2 bells of awakening. One's up above in the undead church. The other is far, far below, in the ruins at the base of Blight Town. Ring them both, and something happens. Brilliant, right? Not much to go on, but I have a feeling that won't stop you. So, off you go. It is why you came, isn't it? To this accursed land of the undead?
So he really represents the lost player, someone who's just given up on this game. You know, they keep going against the bosses, they die over and over and over. They're just like, I can't do this. It's impossible. And his motivation right now, the thing that's keeping him whole, the thing that's keeping his humanity together, I feel, is that he's here just to mock the other players. That's his motivation. I'm gonna part of our humanity. Now, if we use a humanity, which we have 4 of, and we rest at a bonfire, probably strength needs to go. We'll play mainly Dex actually. You know what? No, we'll go stereotypical kind of medieval knight actually. I want strength then. Strength, maybe a bit of vitality. You can always change this later on. So as you can see, we've become human again. We've gained some of our humanity. That gives you a whole idea of, you know, we've that's the literal sense of saying we've given ourselves something to fight for. We are human. Now, this place is ancient. This is a place built underneath Lordran, underneath kind of the temple of the gods in a sense. But it's a giant city which used to probably have a population of millions, if not hundreds of thousands. As you can tell, this place again, time has taken its toll. You have, you know, goddesses who are just lost to time. We don't know what that means. I didn't mean to use that. Trying to figure out where to go. Yeah, it's through here. So right now I'm just going to go about collecting items while talking about the environment. Honestly, this small area here, we could probably spend... There's the crow. We could probably spend hours talking about this. So much in the detail here. From, you know, what was the purpose of this? Was this a chapel at one point? Was it, you know, to worship that statue? What was that? What was the purpose of that? These are people that are just giving up and their souls are just hanging there. I feel this is probably the best view of the apocalypse. You know, everyone's just lost motivation. They've become undead. That doesn't necessarily mean they've become a zombie. It just means they've become a potential zombie. And here we have Nito's boys. So these are skeletons, which right now, as you can see, I'm not going to do a lot of damage to. But what I'm really here for is just the items about the place. He's the god of death. Ironically, he's probably the nicest god out of all of them. He just sits there and does nothing. He didn't get involved in any of the bad stuff that happened afterwards. He just stayed out of the way. We have a Zweihander, which is a two-handed Middle Ages sword. A winged spear. Get out of here. Now they're going to keep following me now until the end of time. So what I am going to do is try and get out of their way. I think they follow me till the end of time. Yeah, they keep following me until the end of time, I believe. And they are very Jason the Argonauts. I can slash away at them for all day. And unless I have a holy weapon... Oh yeah, he's gonna keep coming after me. Unless I have a holy weapon or I have a mace or something that can smash them, they're just gonna keep getting back up. But that gives the idea of, you know, holy weapons now. This game, even though it's kind of Japanese kind of ideology of you know, a cycle of life, you do have two kind of factions when it comes to religious belief. You have three technically, but you have two factions when it comes to religious belief. You have the magical sorcery, which comes from I think that comes from the sorceresses, but it's passed down to the humans. And you also have the miracles, which come from the religious beliefs. But ironically, as you can see, throughout the game, and as many of the things we'll hint at, it's suggested that both sorcery and miracles are two of the same thing. So you have these people that absolutely hate each other because they have two different beliefs. They have the idea of sorcery and the idea of miracles, and that one thinks one's kind of like demonic and evil, the other thinks one's goes against what they think of. But really, they are the same. They're just two sides of the same coin. As in, they both come from your soul and how you use your soul. That might change over time, depending on what stuff I read. But this comes from my memory, so I could be totally wrong on that. And talking about miracles and beliefs, we have this guy, who straight away gives the impression, and especially from his haircut, of like a medieval monk. More like a warrior monk.
Hello there. I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Thurland. Have you business with us? If not, I prefer to keep a distance, if possible.
So, he's a little bit snotty, as you can tell. But this guy here has worked his way up through the classes of his society to become a kind of like a warrior monk. But as we'll see...
Hello there. I realize that I have requested that we retain, but I also want you to know that it is not meant in ill will. Here, no, go ahead.
I always feel like he's very sarcastic when he says that. Like the idea of him like, oh, I didn't mean to be mean. He's kind of like reassuring himself or rechecking himself. Is like trying to control himself in a sense. He's reassuring to himself, I'm a good guy, I'm not a bad guy. I'm a good guy, I'm not a bad guy. And we'll probably see this later on when he does some questionable stuff, perhaps, maybe.
Oh my. Oh, I know. I have to await my companions here. So what if I were to teach you some miracles?
And this is where we learn
Would
about
that please you?
miracles and stuff. So yeah, I think I might go
Very
the miracle
well.
path.
Then first, a covenant with the gods. Now let me share my miracles. Only their ultimate effectiveness will be determined by your efforts.
So the stronger your
And
faith
your
is,
faith.
supposedly, I would always say the stronger your soul is, the more power these miracles have, in a sense.
My companions are Milady and her young knights. She is young, but burdened by an undead mission. We are her defenses, to keep her from harm.
So the idea is that his lady, and basically the person who was someone important in the land, either they were the child of someone who was a lord, or they were someone who actually ran the land themselves, has been given the undead curse. So she's going on pilgrimage to try and stop the end of the world, because that's the idea. Is once you get this undead curse, you have to go here to either die or try and reverse the curse and stop it. But it's interesting how it's my lady. She's been given this purpose to do it, and she's she can't do it herself in their view, because she isn't built to be a warrior. So she's having to go there herself. She is going herself, but she's taking knights along with her. And this guy obviously has been sent off as like a little scout to go ahead of the mission.
An undead mission? Regrettably, I cannot share that with you. But you are my pupil. Perhaps if you show your faith.
So basically he's saying, I'll give you more information if you give me money.
I'm afraid that may be difficult.
And that's where we see more of a
for our
darker side to this
missions are
guy.
sacred.
So basically the idea behind this guy is that he was someone who was obviously he wasn't particularly wealthy, but he's someone who either made his way up or was wealthy in the land that he came from. And you can just tell that he doesn't want to be here. He's been selected, he's basically been ordered to come out here to do scouting, to help his lady of the land, you know, to help his lady of the land in this quest. And he's not undead himself, I don't think. So he's been taken away from his probably comfortable position and told, hey, do this mission.
Come again.
What I'm going to try and
The
do,
effectiveness of the teachings.
try and get some information out of him. Do I have any more? I do not believe I have any more. So what I'm going to try and do now is get enough souls to try and extend that information a little more. Just so we can get a little bit more out of him. Here, also like, there's a lot of secrets in these kind of games. So you fall down here, there's little passageways come through. I'm surprised because I haven't played this game in so many years. I know a lot of the secrets. Homeward Bone. So Homeward Bone allows you to teleport to the bonfire. Morning Star and Talisman. So this is going to help us when it comes to kind of a religious kind of side, a miracle side to this game. We've got the Zweihander here, which I do not believe I'll have any of these stats for. It requires... I can't remember now, what does this require? Did it tell you? Oh, it might tell you on the other menu. Okay, so it requires a 25, I think, in strength. I think. I forgot how to do this game. Can I toggle status? Ah, there we go. So we get a bit of a description of these as well, which I might go through later. So it's basically one of the gigantic great swords. As the name suggests, the Zweihander is held with two hands, but its wielder must still be inhumanly strong, as its great weight sensor for flying. So it's kind of one of those really stupid weapons that you always imagine the fantasy have, but they never probably did use it. So I'm unable to actually wield this efficiently, but look at the size of that. You can't wield this with one hand. And in order to use it correctly, you have to use two hands. It's just, I don't have the strength for this right now. I cannot remember how to figure out what strength I need, actually. So it's got a physical of 130. It's got all that stuff. Oh yeah, it needs a strength of 24. I was correct, yeah. And I do not have a strength of 24, so I'm going to go to this one, which needs a strength of 11, which I do have. I have a strength 13. Slightly stronger than my other one. But this is the Morning Star. And if we have a look at this description, hammer with sharp spiked on its pommel. One of the more barbaric cleric weapons. So it says this is owned by a cleric. Someone who's supposed to be religious, but it's still a barbaric kind of weapon. So it causes bleeding. And as you can see there, it's just like a stereotypical medieval Morning Star, really. There's not much you can say about it. But yeah, it's the idea that this would have been used by clerics, which we know clerics wouldn't, in real life, would have not used weapons at all. And we also got ourselves a talisman, which I'm going to put on here. Now, a talisman allows you to use miracles. Think of it as like something that allows you to kind of use your faith, in a sense. It gives you an ability to cast miracles and stuff. So it's a medium for casting miracles of the gods. So talisman, you know, invokes the idea of it. And then we have the Wing Spear, a long-hilted spear with barbed points, just a stereotypical spear. With that again. Yeah, it's just what you'd expect, really. Yeah. Stabby spear. You'd hold one shield in one hand and a spear in the other. And I believe this is more of a weapon you would actually see in the Middle Ages, and the majority of people would have used this weapon. I'm going to unequip that then. I'm going to equip a talisman. I'm just going to go for this game. Have a miracle-esque feel to this. We've got a cracked red orb. So I am 40 off of getting more information. So what I might do is see if this one has a soul or not. No, it's a Lloyd's Talisman. Lloyd's Talismans are a multiplayer gameplay thing that allows you to stop people from healing. There's one down there as well, I forgot about that one. He's going to do that, but that's okay because I'm going to roll out the way. Run up here, he's going to chase me for a while. And they come. Oh no, that's on me. Yep, I'm dead. Attack the bird. Oh, he's still there. And what we can do is we'll just go to the bonfire and reset him. So we can use this now. His soul. I'll take them off because I don't really want to use them. That should give us enough to talk to the guy.
I will teach you.
So let's talk.
I'm afraid that may be difficult. I'm afraid that may be difficult, for our missions are sacred.
Ah. He has a stress stroke, which is a very iconic thing. So basically, I've missed out on that opportunity. I forget what he says, but I didn't have 800 at the time, so that's, that's on me really. He sells a talisman himself, which I do not use, and he sells other miracles, but they're slightly expensive. Just, anything, they're kind of goodish miracles. You've got great healing, force of God, seek guidance, stuff that show you the way. Here's an interesting one. Homeward, great miracles cast by advanced clerics. Return to the last bonfire. One would normally link to one's homeland, only the curse of the undead has distorted its power, redirecting it to its bonfire. So the idea is that I feel this is more linked to your destiny, or where you're supposed to be. Your homeland is where you come from. So normally this would teleport a person to go home, whereas because the undeads don't have a homeland anymore, they become part of a weapon for the Dark Soul. In the sense, they've become a tool for the Dark Soul. Their purpose, their home, is here on the quest. So there's just a little bit of information there.
The effect?
Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to continue onwards. I think we spent enough time in this place. We spend a lot longer. Now we can either go down, which we don't have the key for, or we can go up. But actually, no, what we will do, we will go down, because then, although we don't have the master key to skip a few levels, what we do have is the Undead Maiden. No response. So here is the Firekeeper. She's the person basically that's keeping this fire lit. In a sense, she's using her soul to keep the bonfire going. She has no tongue. The idea is that she has to remain pure. There's blood all over her, so she's had to remain pure, and to remain pure, she's had to cut out her own tongue, which leads to a really complicated idea of do people in this age think that women can only be pure if they're not able to speak? There's obviously more to that idea, but that's one of the paths that you could possibly go down. But what we can do, we'll talk to her later, because eventually, later down the line, she will be able to speak. We'll regrow her tongue. Don't ask me how. It's complicated. But she's trapped down there for all of eternity, which leads to the idea that a maiden has to be sacrificed. You know, the idea of a virgin sacrifice. Someone who's pure has to be sacrificed in order to keep this going. So these are the zombies, these are the undead, the ones who have just lost their ability. Now, as you can see, they are dying.